Hey, and welcome to The Solid Verbal. Now would be a perfect time to consider subscribing. Yeah, that little subscribe button for year-round premium college football content. That's it. Here's the video. Enjoy. Subscribe.
If you had the ability to guarantee one thing that will happen this season, not including the team who's going to win a championship, what would you pick? So what's your strategy for this type of question, Dan? Like, are you going for the thing that makes college football fun and interesting? Are you going selfishly for the thing that benefits your team the most outside of a national championship? Are you going for something that benefits the show the most? I've got a range of options here for myself. What are you selecting? Things that you can guarantee.
Okay, so the turn of phrase I'm going to use is renewed rivalry. I'm going to say I want teams that have been traditionally on the wrong end of their rivals jumping up. And look, I know this runs counter to my own fandom. I want Washington in its first season under Kalen DeBoer to have that jump up and beat Oregon. Okay? I don't want that for Oregon, but I want that for the sport across the board. I want Auburn winning an Iron Bowl matchup. UCLA just destroyed USC last year, but I want something that is going to jumpstart rivalries across. I want South Carolina to beat Clemson. I think that would be superb. Okay, so that I know that it's one idea, but it's many different outcomes. But I'm always gonna side on the side of novelty, and so anything novel, I'm for. So that can be across the board, right? That can be a school that hasn't had a traditionally excellent quarterback finding their guy for the first time in a long, long time. We talked about that on a relatively recent episode, who has been in a desert of quality QB play. So I want that. It's all under the umbrella of novelty. How about a playoff without an SEC team? That'd be bright, shining, and new.
Right,
and there's a reason why the SEC finds itself with one, if not two teams in the playoff a good chunk of the time. But I want to spice up my relationship with college football. I want it, whether it's, role playing, maybe some toys. You know what I'm talking about, Ty. I want things to get
here. It is getting hot in here.
I want to jumpstart my intellectual relationship with the sport, and having renewed rivalries, new spice is what I want.
I want USC to go 7-5.
That's the single thing you want the most?
I have a range of things here, Dan.
Okay.
USC going 7-5 would be a very interesting conversation given how they kicked off this domino effect this offseason. Feels like everything's changed since USC decided to pluck Lincoln Riley away from Oklahoma. I think that would be an interesting storyline. Selfishly, I want Sean Clifford to stay healthy. I'm just curious to see what that looks like. I am not the world's biggest Sean Clifford fan.
Right. But you got to name one thing. One concept, one idea.
You named like 5 things. Why do I have to name one thing?
Okay, well, no, my number one thing is renewed rivalry, is somebody upending the trend.
I want to see Anthony Richardson live up to the hype.
So Florida with an absolute killer at quarterback, lifting them immediately to an interesting place.
I want to see Anthony Richardson have KJ Jefferson level playmaking ability, because I think that upsets the balance of the sort of SEC East force, right?
Sure.
Because right now, Georgia is clearly the top dog. Tennessee, I think, is on the rise. Like, there's some interesting things going on in the SEC East for sure, but Florida rising up behind a guy like an Anthony Richardson, I think would make for a really interesting conversation moving forward. So, short notice looking at this question. Yeah. The only other thing I have here was I want to see Dave Aranda grow his hair out. And I don't know if that actually rises to the level of the question. So,
right.
Let's go with Anthony Richardson.
You want like a Bomani Jones, Nick Wright, like what's going to happen when these guys traditionally, okay. I mean, it has been one full years since Florida made the SEC championship game?
Well, but a lot's changed in that year, right?
I know.
An awful lot's changed in that year. And, one of the questions that we often get about the SEC, and I think we got it this time around, is what happens if Saban leaves, or when's Saban going to leave? What does that look like?
Sure.
I don't know the answer to that question. We can hypothesize what that means, theorize what that means, but I think in the short term, it's far more interesting to me to have a little bit more balance on either side of the conference. And if Anthony Richardson's an absolute killer at quarterback, that could that could help balance things out in a way that would be interesting and would be good for Billy Napier, frankly.
I'll give you my version of that. My version of a team that looks like they could get a really good year out of a quarterback and upset the balance in a division or conference. Go Big Red. If Casey Thompson is amazing with Mark Whipple, who wants to throw all the time, apparently, and it's not like Nebraska's been developing good running backs lately, so that doesn't necessarily matter that much. But Nebraska coming out of the West with a full-on star quarterback would be new and novel and potentially, and they're not going to have enough juice to beat what we presume to be Ohio State from the East, but that's at least something novel and spicing things up in the college football bedroom. Is it not?
I think so. I was going to say Nebraska, but I didn't want to be like too predictable because I feel like I've been giving Nebraska as my answer for a good chunk of this offseason. I am genuinely interested. I try to go a little bit off the beaten path here, but for sure, Nebraska having that guy at quarterback, I think is a great answer here. Yeah.
I would say of all of the divisions or conferences that could use some new excitement, I would say Louisville jumping up would be a pretty interesting thing and entering the top level ACC conversation once again because it's been a minute. In the SEC, I'm already a big believer in KJ Jefferson, but Arkansas either coming out of the West or basically having the West go through the Hogs in some fashion, I think would be tremendous content. I do. I absolutely. You know how I feel about
Tremendous.
Arkansas.
Yeah, you've got your obsession with Arkansas is TCU level.
Well, because of the last
for me
15, 18 years of Arkansas football, they're the most college football team, just in terms of the chaotic nature of the Arkansas fan experience and what it must be. So that's good for the show. That's good for everybody watching games on TV. It's good by me, always.